Hey guys, it's David with Cars and Code. This video is a continuation of other videos, so if you haven't seen those yet, please click the link below and watch those before you watch this one. So in this video, we're going to add a red dot to our friction circle to show the current acceleration of the car. Now, we're not going to actually hook up to the acceleration of the phone yet, but we're just going to create a view model and hook into some variables that we can change later. So the first thing we're going to do is create a new class, and we're just going to create a base view model. So it's just going to be a generic base view model that I use for most of my projects. So we're going to take it and make it public, and we're going to implement iNotify property changed. Okay, and then what we're going to do is implement this interface, and then we're going to create a raise property changed event. Sweet, so now we have our base view model created. So now we're going to actually go and create a main view model. So we're going to go add class, we'll call this one the main view model. Now we're going to have two properties on here, and it's going to inherit from our base view model. Our two properties are going to be the x acceleration and the y acceleration. So let's create those properties. First, they're going to be floats, and we're going to call them x acceleration, or xACC for short, and then we're also going to create one for y, so they'll also be floats, and it will be called yACC, just like x. Now this is almost perfect. We're just going to need to add a raise property changed in here in case they get changed later, and we'll do the same thing for the y acceleration, raise property changed. And for fun, we're just going to give them some default values. We'll set them both to 0.25, just so we can see that it's working. Sweet. Now we're going to actually go and draw that on our friction circle view. But first, we need to grab those values. So we're going to create two bindable properties here. So those are going to be done by first creating a static bindable property, and this is just how it's done with Xamarin Forms. So we're going to have a public static bindable property, and we're going to call this one the x acceleration property, and it's going to be bindable property.create. And then the first argument is the name of the property that we don't have yet, so I'm going to leave that for blank. And then we're going to do the type of the variable, which is going to be a float. And then we're going to do the type of the object that's holding it, so that is going to be our friction circle view. And finally, we're going to give it a default value, which will start at 0. Now we have to create that actual property, so it's just a public float x acceleration, and we'll have a getter and a setter. So here's our get, and here's our set. Now in our get, we're going to grab the value from that bindable property. And the way you're going to do that is return, cast it to a float. And we're going to do this dot get value, and we're going to give it the name of the property, so the x acceleration property. Now to do the set, it's pretty similar, just this dot set value. And we're going to pass it the x acceleration property as well as the value. Now that we have it, we can actually go back here and fill this in and give it the name of that property, which is going to be the name of our x acceleration property. Now we're going to go through here and copy the whole thing and paste it in and start switching these up to be y acceleration instead of x. So now we have our properties, but they're not actually bound to anything yet. So what we're going to do first is come over here to our main page, XAML.cs, and we're going to assign our binding context to a new main view model. The last thing we're going to do is come over to our actual XAML page, and we're going to assign those properties. So x acceleration is going to be binding to our x acceleration property, and y acceleration is going to be binding to the y acceleration on our view model. So now they're binding. So if we come back over to our friction circle view, we're actually going to be able to draw. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to actually come back over to our canvas that we were drawing earlier, and we're going to create a dot in the middle just so it's a little easier to understand. And the last thing we have to do is actually draw onto the screen that red dot where it currently is. So first let's change our paint color to to a red color, color.red.toSKcolor. Next thing we're going to do is change the stroke width. So let's do paint.stroke width equals, and then we're going to do that scale function again, and we're just going to give it a circle stroke width. So now what we have to do is actually figure out the correct position to draw this. So first we're going to create a G scale, as I call it. We're going to find out how many pixels are in each G. So in order to do that, let's create a flow to G scale. And that's just going to be how many pixels in 1G. Now if you notice, the 1G line is at 2/3 times the radius. So however many pixels are in there is our radius. So we're just going to take that 2.0f times radius divided by 3.0f. And that's just going to be how many pixels are in each G. So now we can figure out the actual x and y position. So first let's do the x position. This is going to be the x acceleration times that G scale plus the surface width over 2, because we need to center it in the middle of the screen. And we're going to do the same thing to y position. It's going to be the y acceleration times the G scale. Now remember, y is backwards, so we're going to have to multiply by -1. And then we're going to add the surface height over to f. And the last thing we have to do is canvas.draw a circle. And this is just going to be actually drawing that dot. We're going to draw it at x position, y position. We're going to scale float, and then we're going to create a marker radius, right? So how big we want the marker to be. So let's say we want that to be 7. So private constant marker radius, and we're going to make that 7. So let's come back down here and throw 7 in there, or sorry, marker radius. And finally, we're going to give it the paint. So now that we have all that done, we can run our application. And we can see we've got that new dot, as well as a red current marker at 0.25 and 0.25. So that's the end of this video. In the next video, we're going to go and actually start getting some the accelerometer on our phone and move that around as the accelerometer changes. So I will see all of you guys in the next video.